This is the St. Paul Civic Center, one of the most beautiful buildings for hockey in all the world. Although it's empty right now, the hockey season is just around the corner, and in not too long a time, there'll be people here cheering the Minnesota Fighting Saints on in every game. We'll be right back to meet the 1973-74 Saints in a moment.
The Minnesota Fighting Saints, Year 2. Brought to you by Jerry Perkle's White Bear Dodge, the home of market-blasting prices. Whatever your transportation needs, see White Bear Dodge first and last.
The man sitting next to me might not think of himself as being a pioneer, but he is. He's Glen Sonmore, the first coach and general manager of the Minnesota Fighting Saints after coming over from the Gophers. Glen, you have to have a lot of memories from last year, the trials, the tribulations, and of course the high spots.
Yes, we certainly do, Tom. It's been a tremendous year, and I know it's a time I'm going to look back on for a long time as something that was just great to be in on at the very beginning, and it's been a tremendous source of pride for all of us to watch what has developed in a year, and now we're looking ahead to where we could make some more improvement and move on from here.
Let's take a look now at some of those early moments, which I'm sure you'll never forget. This is not a political caucus, as we all know, Glen. It amounts to being the very first draft of the WHA.
Yes, that was where it all began. Very fond memories of that, Tom. It's out in California where we were selecting the people that were eventually going to make up this Fighting Saint team, and of course our partners were doing the same thing. It was really a tension time, of course, for us. You wanted to make the right selection, people that you knew would be able to make it in our league and that you thought you had a good chance of getting. And there was an awful lot of caucusing going on, believe me, and a lot of names came across the board there. Some of them are with us now, some of them are not, but it's really where it got all underway, and it was a most exciting time for all of us.
How long did that last?
Well, that went on for a couple of days. It was very well run, Tom. As you can imagine, there were over 2,000 people to be selected, and it took a lot of organization, and our people, I think, showed right off the bat this was going to be a major league operation the way they ran that, because it did take a lot of organization, and it went by very smoothly and was very well run.
Well, they certainly came out against many of the critics with total enthusiasm and, as you said, organization, and it really all culminated during these meetings.
Yes, it did. This is, I think, when people really began to believe we were for real, Tom. There was a lot of skepticism at that time, of course, and the way this was run, and then how we quickly moved from that into really signing these people and getting them over here, and of course we're very proud that some of the first people were ours. Mike Curran was the first person signed. Wayne Connolly was the first major leaguer to come across, and we were very proud of that. There's another historic time, that first game in Ottawa. And here's some shots from league action. These are not necessarily all ours. This is a game, I believe, there with Cleveland and Philadelphia. There's Johnny McKenzie, one of the real big names in our league, and just had a superlative year with Philadelphia, now Vancouver. Oh, there he is, of course. There's the #1 guy in our league, of course, Bobby Hull, and there, Jerry Cheevers, Johnny McKenzie again, and now adding the Howes and people like this. We're getting an awful long list of awfully impressive people. Here's one of Hull's patented rushes, of course. I saw a lot of those. I'm afraid we're going to see a lot more, because he's got some things off his mind now that he had last year. He was under a tremendous amount of pressure, and he just played superlatively anyway, and I just shudder to think some of the nights he's going to have this year, but he's, of course, just great to have in our league.
He's always in shape.
Yes, he is. He's a real class athlete, Tom, and a little bit of action there. Some of the spirited action we had last year there, many of those crunching checks, but it's looked like Terry Ball there, and there's some action from our games last year. I'm sure we'll have a lot more like him.
There were many, many highlights during the 72-73 season for the World Hockey Association and for the Minnesota Fighting Saints. And Glenn, I have to remember that going down to the final game where you had to have a one-game playoff to get into the playoffs, and you made it. But I'm sure in your thoughts, there are a lot of things that you remember, highlights in the season for your squad.
Yes, there were some great games in here. I recall a Winnipeg game where Jack McCartan shut him out, and a great finish where Huffer Christian scored a beautiful goal against Jerry Cheevers and things. There were many real highlights and big moments for us, Tom.
Wondering, Glenn, what your thoughts were in the very first game.
Well, we were very nervous, of course, about it. We had Winnipeg right off the bat, which is tough, and it was a great feeling of accomplishment for the whole league, though, when we were underway. There's a shot of Bobby McMillan off to the side of the net there. There's Jimmy Johnson. We had some shots here of Bobby McMillan and Mike Antonovich, two, we think, the top young players in the game, and I think you're going to see an improved year from both of them. There's, of course, Billy Klatt, who had just a great year for us. Here's our Teddy Hampson on one of his patent rushes. Teddy, of course, had a superlative year. Mike Curran, who I think startled the hockey world at just how competent he was with no pro background at all, but moved in and proved to be one of the best goalkeepers in the game. And, of course, Jack McCartan, who gave us some very solid backup work behind Mike, and goalkeeping was a big strength for us last year. I think it's going to be even better with the addition of John Garrett, but certainly it was a strong point for us last year. There's Jack covering up, and then Mike. They complemented each other very well. Here's Mike McMahon, who came home here after being away for a few years and just had a great year with us, and we're looking for another one from Mike. Dick Paradise, you see there, another example of a local guy who just got a chance to perform here in his hometown and took advantage of it. There's one of Terry Ball's jolting checks, and we hope we see some more of those, too. Billy Young taking someone out rather. Good shot of our glass boards there that are really the talk of the league and the talk of hockey. They're just... Here's Wayne Connolly doing what he does best, putting the puck in the net, and there aren't many around anywhere that do it any better than he does. Wayne and Billy Klatt, of course, were our two big gunners last year, and we think we've added in people like the Walton brothers and Cardwell some real scoring strength in addition to those two. It's Wayne again, and over to Billy, and Billy putting it in, and that was a common sight last year. 36 times Billy did that for us.
It's also been a great opportunity for the American players, too, Glenn.
Yes, it has. Particularly our case, of course. We had 10 of them on our roster out of 29 that are playing Major League Hockey, so we obviously have more than our share. There's little Mike Antonovich. People get a look at him as he goes into year two, and a good time would be that first exhibition game here on the 6th against the Howe family. And we think that's going to be a highlight, and fans get a chance then to see, I'm sure, the next superstar of hockey, young Mark Howe. Nice to get a look at Gordy again, but believe me, the guy that's going to open some eyes is young 18-year-old Mark Howe, who unquestionably is going to be the next superstar of hockey.
I can tell by the look on your face that you're excited about that kid.
Yes, I certainly am. I've seen him, and I think it's great that he's going to be here October the 6th, that Saturday night, with his dad, and that'll be our opener here, and we're really looking forward to it. Talking of little guys, there's little Huffer Christensen. Watch this move, one of the real great puck handlers in the game. And this was a great goal for us. It won a game for us against Cleveland when we very badly needed a win. Talking of our youngsters, there's Terry Ryan, who set a record in our league with 6 shorthanded goals, and just another example of a real good young player that makes our future look real great, we think, Tom. And there's Bobby McMillan, who many people in hockey believe has a chance to be just one of the top young players. He's come back, he looks bigger and stronger, and we think you're going to see there the two of them together, Antonovich and McMillan, and a good part of our future is standing right there, I'll tell you, Tom.
How did you feel about the first year officiating?
Well, in the summer, when you look back on those things at the time, there were many nights when I didn't think much of it, but actually they did a very good job, Tom. Vern Buffy put together a very competent staff, and they handled themselves very well. It was one more area where our league proved to be Major League right away. They were a very good staff. And Antonovich, it's a sight we like to see, some happy fans. We hope we're going to see some more of it. There was a shot there of Jimmy Johnson. I think that's another thing. Our fans are going to see a new Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy's 25 pounds lighter than he was last year at this time, and I think when we're talking about our additions, there's one that Jimmy Johnson's going to be a new hockey player for us, so it's going to give us a big lift.
And you have a trainer who's just a literal nut on conditioning.
Yeah, you can't be around guys very long and be 25 pounds overweight. There's Mel Pearson lashing one. That's another sight we'd like to see a lot of, the puck in the net and our fans on their feet clapping, and we hope we're going to see a lot of those and soon. There's another one. A lot of happy fans. There's Bobby McMillan. Wayne Conley putting the puck in the net. When he gets in there like that, there isn't much doubt what's going to happen. He doesn't miss too many. Mike McMahon lashing one from the point. Like to see those happy faces. Here's something we see too much of, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody that really looks better doing just what Bobby Hull is doing there. Terry Ball stopped him from doing it there, but he and then turned this into a goal for us. A very good play here by Terry, and Wayne Conley bringing it up behind, slipping it over to Billy Young, who slides it in. It was a big goal for us against Winnipeg in the game I mentioned where Jack McCartan shut him out.
There's one man some of you might have met last year, maybe some of you didn't, and we'll meet him. The head coach of the Minnesota Fighting Saints, Harry Neal. We'll be with Harry right after this. It was about 2/3 of the way through the season last year that Harry Neal took over as head coach of the Minnesota Fighting Saints. Glen was the coach. He also has the duties of general manager, but he then concentrated strictly on the duties of general manager, and Harry, you took over, and I guess that's sort of an unforgettable experience.
Well, it was, Tom. I will say this, it wasn't as dramatic a change as it might have seemed to be, because Glen and I had worked very closely together up till that point, but the dual job for Glen got to be too much, and he's not so foolish as to not give up the wrong half of it, so he kept the general manager's job, and I inherited the coaching one.
I think the move makes sense. You're either one or the other. Harry, as the head coach of the Saints, you know that you cannot stand still. You must make changes. You must move forward. You did make some changes. You got some new players. Why don't you tell us something about the acquisitions?
Well, I think we've done very well in the recruiting department, Tom, and you're right, we better, or we're going to slide the wrong way in the standings. But we added what I think is a great young goaltender in John Garrett, two defensemen, one veteran, a young veteran, Rick Smith, 4 years in the National League and sipped out of the Stanley Cup for Boston, so we'd like that ingredient. And Bob Boyd, we think the outstanding college defenseman last season at Michigan State. And we've added some aggressiveness, I think, and some goal scoring up front with the brothers Walton, Mike of NHL and Boston Bruin fame lately, a great goal scorer wherever he's played, and Rob, who certainly who we think was one of the top offensive players outside the National League last year. We've added Steve Cardwell, who split the last 2 seasons with Hershey in Pittsburgh. Steve has proven that he can score his share of goals and also proved that he's kind of the tough guy, and I think we need a couple of people in that area. And finally, Murray Heatley, the fellow who led the Western League in scoring. So it seems to me that we filled the 2 major gaps that we had last year, offensive strength and some aggressiveness. And we'll soon see whether we did.
Harry, I tell you what, some of the new guys are here in the locker room. Going to put you to work right now, and why don't we go around and meet some of them, okay?
Sure.
Fine.
Well, we have with us now John Garrett, the goaltender I was speaking about before. John was an outstanding goalie in the Ontario Hockey Association with Peterborough and lately from the Chicago organization. John, it might be interesting for our fans to know something about the style of goaltending that you have. Could you comment on that?
Yes, Harry. I like to think of myself as a stand-up goalie. I think to be a flop goalie as such, you have to be at least 6 feet tall, and I'm about 5'8", so I try to style myself after somebody like Joe Vilmuir or Roger Crozier.
Well, either one of those would be good enough, John. Also, John, I wonder whether you could indicate to us perhaps some of the reasons for coming with the Saints. We all know that you were behind one of the great goaltenders, Tony Esposito, in Chicago. How could you comment on this?
Well, I am playing hockey because I like the game and I like to play. And in Chicago, you look at a goaltender such as Gary Smith, who has proven himself in the National Hockey League, and then he goes to Chicago and he gets in maybe 15 games a year. And I think this has almost destroyed him, and luckily he's been traded to Vancouver where he'll get a chance to redeem himself. But to avoid that situation, I'm glad that I'm able to come to the Saints, and hopefully we'll play a numerous.
Well, I hope you play a lot too, John. Thanks for stopping in. I'd like you to meet Mike Walton, who I think is the most exciting offensive hockey player to ever play professional hockey in the state of Minnesota. And Mike, I have gone out on a limb and kind of predicted that you'll be close to that 50-goal mark this year. What are your feelings on that?
Well, I hope so, Harry. It's going to be a big season, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think if I don't score 50, I'm going to be disappointed in myself, and I don't want that. So I think I'm going to have a great year.
Well, I think you will too, Mike, and you know that we had some offensive problems last year, and I think that not only will you get your share, but the people that play with you will get theirs. And I might add, what about your old partner, Mr. Orr there? Is he seriously considering our team or not?
Well, you never know. I guess it would be pretty hard, to let the big kid get out of Boston, but I know Al Eagleson was serious when he came up with the idea, and I talked to Glen and a few other people in Minnesota here, and I think Bobby definitely would listen to anything they had to say. And as I say, you never know. I never thought probably I'd be here, and I love Boston, but looks like it's a great city, and I'm looking forward to playing here.
Well, great. It's nice to hear that, Mike, and we'll take the first half of that combination this year, and I want you to know how pleased we are that you're with us.
Thanks very much.
I'd like to introduce now Bob Boyd from Michigan State, All-American defenseman, and one who we think is going to be a great asset to our organization. Bob, at Michigan State, you were known for your offensive ability as well as your aggressiveness, and I was wondering whether you thought you could perform the same way with the same style in the WHA.
Well, that's like this is a style I've always played or tried to play, and it's done well for me, and all I can do is go out on the ice and try and keep it up here, play the way I've been used to playing and the way I have played in the past, and I think I'll be able to do that.
Good. Well, we could use your offensive ability, and I know we could use your aggressiveness. Bob, thanks for stopping in, and we'll see you later. I'd like you to meet here the two top scorers in the Western Professional Hockey League last season. Murray Heatley, who led the league in goals for Phoenix, on my far left, and Rob Walton, who led the league in points for Seattle. And I'd like to know whether you two gentlemen plan on having another scoring race where you're 1-2 this year.
Well, speaking first here, I first of all have to make the club, Harry, and after that I'll worry about chasing Bobby. I remember last year I kept looking over my shoulder, and he was coming up, and by the time the season was over, he was looking over his shoulder, and it was a little too late by then. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing here, and I hope I can score some goals for the Saints.
Good. What about you, Rob?
I just hope that we have both the same seasons we did last year. I'd be very happy.
Right. Well, so would we, and I think that our fans are going to enjoy watching both you fellas play, and I think we've really added some scoring output with the addition of you two guys, and I want you to know we're very happy that you're here with us, and we're counting on some kind of a scoring race between you anyway. Formerly of the Oakland National Hockey League team, and I'm very happy to say one of the top acquisitions for our club. And Rick, kind of coming with the handle as a defensive defenseman. How did you ever score those 9 goals last year?
Well, I'm changing my handle.
Good. Well, we'll take your defensive talents, and we'll take another 9 goals. I hope that you can come up with that for us.
Well, you know, this offensive thing, I think it kind of grows on a guy.
You like throwing your arms up in the air, do you?
Sure.
Well, I think that we have a potential Western Division All-Star defenseman in Rick Smith, who's also tasted the champagne from the Stanley Cup, and those kind of things are once in a lifetime to a player, and I think that perhaps you wouldn't mind trying the same stuff out of a different trophy this May.
Yeah, it tastes the same, I think.
Okay, Rick, thanks for stopping in. I'd like you to meet Steve Cardwell. The last 2 seasons split them both between Pittsburgh and Hershey. Left winger, who I think is going to be a great asset to our club. And Steve, one of the real reasons we were interested in getting you was not only your offensive ability, but you're known for your aggressive play. And do you think you'll be able to handle that assignment this year for us?
Well, Harry, hope to think so anyway. That's what I'm planning on doing, going out and playing the game I've been used to playing the last couple of years. I feel that taking the man out of the play and warding your man off in the corners and things like this are all part of my game, my style. And I hope to be able to play that way here in Minnesota.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Steve, because I know you'll be a favorite with our fans if you continue that style, and I hope that you can situate yourself here for a long time. Have you bought a home?
No, Harry, not yet. As a matter of fact, the wife and I are going out and look today.
Good. Well, I think you'll find this a desirable place to live, and like some of the other new fellas, you'll find it a nice place to buy a home and bring up a family.
Well, the area is beautiful. We've had a couple of chances to take a look in the area, and I can't see anything wrong with it. It's a beautiful place, and we're looking forward to making our home here.
Good. Well, I hope that you don't have any time to cut grass till about the middle of May. Then we know we've had a good season.
Just shoveling the snow.
Right. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, Harry, you made a pretty good round of the locker rooms. We've met some of the new faces, both the rookies and, of course, some of the established players coming over from the National Hockey League, and I think the people got a pretty good idea of what you have.
Well, I hope they do, Tom. We're very optimistic about our chances this year in our division, and I think a great deal of credit has to go to my boss, Mr. Sonmore, for doing most of the recruiting on this year, and he's given me a pretty good team to work with.
And you got a pretty good taste as to what a sportscaster has to do on your rounds of the locker room today, right? You did a pretty good job.
Well, just what you told me, Tom. That's all I did.
You did too good, doggone it. This guy standing over here, we don't have to talk much about. Teddy Hampson, for years a star in the National Hockey League, and the people will remember him, of course, from the Minnesota North Stars, and last year with the Saints. Teddy, another year rolling around, and they keep you in pretty good shape here, don't they?
Yes, our trainer sets up quite a program for us to follow, and you really have to get in shape for his program before you ever get to training camp.
I got a kick out of a comment that Ted just told me. He said, I used to run some, but not quite so much as I do now until I came over here to this club. Ted, what are your thoughts coming into the 73-74 season with all the new players and some of the rookies and, of course, some of the veterans?
Well, I'm real optimistic. Last year, I think we had a super effort to accomplish what we did. And this year we've added some goal scorers and some bigger fellows, and I really think we'll be in contention for our own division title, and we'll give anybody a run for their money, Tom.
There is one other guy that we have not talked to, and that's the general manager of the Saints, Glen Sonmore. We'll kind of find him next. Glen, it's been an interesting journey through time. We've dabbled with the past, we've gone into the future, but I think you have to think in terms of tomorrow. What lies ahead?
Well, Tom, every time I think about it, and this upcoming season particularly, I get tremendously excited because I really believe, Tom, that here our Minnesota Fighting Saints have made real giant steps and significant improvements over the off-season, and I can't wait to see Mike Walton and Ricky Smith and Robbie Walton and some of the new people we're bringing in that I think the fans in this area are just going to take to. I sincerely believe that Mike Walton's going to be the most exciting hockey player people have seen here in a long, long time. He just has that flamboyant style, plus the ability to score 50 goals, which is awfully important. And Ricky Smith is, I watched him a good deal last year, unquestionably was the outstanding defenseman on the Oakland team, and we think is a real shot at being an all-star here. And in Mike, Walton, and Ricky, we have two people that I don't think it's unrealistic at all to say are potential all-stars, and that's always exciting to watch. And of course, I think it's going to improve our team. We also added Mike's younger brother, Rob, who was the leading scorer in the Western Pro League. We were fortunate to get the number 2 scorer there, too, Murray Heatley, that fans will remember from his Wisconsin days, I'm sure. We also added Steve Cardwell, a big, rugged winger, the kind we'd been looking for, with, at 22, some significant National League experience, and then finally 2 real young boys, Bob Boyd from Michigan State, the best college player in the country, and then John Garrett, an outstanding young goalkeeper that's going to give us depth in a position that we were good at anyway. So when I get thinking about these and waiting to see these young men, Tom, I just get excited, and I think our fans are going to just, they're going to love this team. It's going to be a real entertaining team. I know it is, and I just can't wait to get it underway.
I know a little earlier I mentioned to Harry that you cannot stand still. You must move ahead. You must make changes, and the Saints obviously have done this. Glenn, one other important item, and that is season tickets for the Minnesota Fighting Saints.
Well, yes, Tom, there are a good number. Obviously, there's still a great number of good seats available in the most beautiful building that I've ever seen hockey played in, and I do believe this, with the kind of team we're going to have, and with what's going to happen in our league, and with the hows and people coming in, that we're going to have people waiting in line a long time down there for single game seats, and I really would encourage the fans to get down there and get yourself locked into this for this season and for the seasons to come, because before long it's going to be a hard thing to do.
The Minnesota Fighting Saints realize it is you they must please, and they have worked hard to improve their product on the ice, as we've seen in this last half hour. A half hour which I've enjoyed. We hope you have, and thanks for being with us. This is Tom Reither. Good night.
The Minnesota Fighting Saints Year 2 has been presented by the Major League Dodge Boys out at Jerry Perkle's White Bear Dodge in White Bear Lake.